Hello. Hello, girlies. My name is Ingelore Dubs, and welcome back to Hello. And if you are new here, this is a space where we talk about all of the ins and outs and uncomfortabilities of life, love stories, just anything and everything like we're on a FaceTime call with our besties, because that's literally what we are. You can't convince me otherwise. And if you've been here before, you know that I normally don't dress up for the podcast, but today's episode, this one is for the girls that need a little bit of tough love and they need a little lesson on loving themselves. So that's what the attire it's about, because I thought this was giving kind of like teacher in a way. So yeah, I'm going to teach you some love lessons, I guess. Ooh, and the drink of the day is literally just water, because I have zero fun drinks in my house at the moment, and the only option was Coca-Cola, but I don't drink sodas, so water it is. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about why letting go of the wrong person is the biggest act of self-love you can do, and why staying with somebody for their potential is literally just a one-way ticket to getting your heart broken. So pack your bags, girlies, because we're leaving the illusion behind. And mind you, girlies, I know that this conversation is probably going to be a little heavy and just a little bit uncomfortable, but trust me, it is worth having. And if you're also new to the podcast, you know that I talk in every single episode about a personal experience that, I relate to in some extent regarding the topic that we're talking about. And in this case, if you didn't know, I was married. Okay, I was married for 3 years with this guy for 4. I am now divorced, which slay the house down. I literally am the happiest divorcee in the history of ever. However, my ex-husband was just very abusive, very toxic, very much so the wrong person. And let's just start with the truth, girlies. Staying with somebody who is not right for you, and by this, I don't just mean someone who's like different than your goal and different than your dream man or your dream girl. I mean someone who's actually bad for you, someone that's bad for your life. Staying with someone bad for you for a long time is not only a waste of time, which I feel like in a lot of relationships, you end up staying longer just because you say, well, I was already with this guy for 6 months. I mean, am I really going to let it go now? Yes, you are, because not only is it a waste of time, it takes away like little by little parts and bits of your personality, of who you really are, how you see the world. It makes you into a completely different person when you're in an abusive, toxic relationship. And guess what? It's kind of like a never-ending cycle of the longer you stay, then the harder it is to live, because you start thinking, what if I overreacted? Well, I can deal with it. I mean, am I gonna get somebody else that's better? What really is out there that's better than this? You start getting used to the sucky things. So then you don't want to leave. And here's where my personal story comes to play. Okay, so I was with this guy for 4 years, married for 3. And honestly, towards the end of the relationship, it was so hard to leave. And it's not that I didn't want it to end. I was actually kind of praying to God every day that something would happen for the relationship to finish, because I just couldn't walk away. It felt just like such a hard thing to do, to walk away. Mind you, this wasn't just like a weird dating situation. Like, our lives were entwined, right? Like finances, living, families. Like, it was just like such a, you are part of my life now, that in my head, I really couldn't see a way out. And I am, of course, not going to go into every single little detail of what my ex did, but I do have to give you a couple of examples that maybe you're going to relate with. So mind you, when I married my ex, I was an au pair. So I was still living with my host family. Now, I moved in with him 4 months after we got married. And at this point, we had been married for 4 months. I move in, and maybe 2 weeks after moving in, I find out that he's cheating on me with a girl. Now, how do I find out? This girl DMs me on Instagram, your typical, hey girly, I hope you're okay. Now, hear me out. And this is the most fucked up thing ever. This girl had been a follower of mine for maybe 6 to 7 months, okay? So before we even got married. And I mean, like, I would see her interacting with my content and commenting and whatever else. And I was like, okay, she's a follower, like, cool. And I would talk to her, just like silly little things like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for your support. Those type of things. And she was always so sweet. So when she texted me, hey girl, I didn't think anything of it, because we had texted a couple times, or like DM'd a couple times. And her text goes, I hope you're away from blank, because this information is going to be a little rough. I kid you not, I felt how my heart sank to my ass. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? We are married, whatever else. And in my head, I was like, I mean, this girl, she's a follower. What's going on? I was, in shock. That day, my ex gets home and I confront him about it. And, he's like, so sorry. He's like, no, it didn't happen that way. He tells me like a whole story of like, this girl is blackmailing me because X, Y, and Z. All of this shit. I chose to believe him. Okay, because I was like, well, what he's saying kind of makes sense. Not really, but somewhat. And the girl kind of admitted that she was, in fact, blackmailing him. So I was like, it's okay. I'll give him an opportunity, whatever else. Shortly after that, maybe 3 days after that, my ex was abusive with me for the first time. He picked me up, like, by my shoulders, like, picked me up, put me against the wall, and held me, like, so hard, but, like, he was holding my shoulders, like, so incredibly hard. Like, I got bruises and whatever else. Now, mind you, my ex was a bodybuilder that was maybe 200 pounds, and he could lift maybe about 250. I have no idea, but like a lot. He was strong. So this dynamic, not slay whatsoever. And after that, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? Who did I marry? Not only is he a cheater, but he's also got a temper. Like I was even more shocked than the first time. And things developed from then on. Like, it didn't get any better. It only got worse and worse and worse in every episode. But those were the downs, right? After every like abusive episode, he would have a come up where he would bring me a teddy bear, and the bigger the fuck up, the bigger the bear. And I don't know, if I found out he was cheating again, he would buy me a designer bag, those type of things. Now, this behavior messes up with your brain in a crazy way, to the point where your brain will stop producing the right levels of dopamine because it does not know how to act. Like, it's like, okay, the downs are so low, the highs are so high. Your brain is like trying to process all of this information, but it gets fucked up. And this is what happened to me in an abusive relationship, right? It wasn't just like a little bit abusive. It was very, very, very abusive. Now, there's different extents and there's different, levels of abuse, but it kind of all works out in the same way. If these guys or girls, depending on who you're dating, are doing this to you, your brain will get fucked up. So why would you stay in a relationship with the wrong person? Because you've already spent so much time in it. Well, guess what? You're going to spend 3 times the amount of time fixing what that person's going to break on therapy. And it's going to be 5 times more expensive, because trust me, that therapy is expensive. And girly pops, unhealthy relationships are so incredibly emotionally draining. You're always walking on eggshells. You're always trying to not upset them, to not, set them off. Because of course, like, these people being angry is like the world is going to end. And even if they're not straight up abusive and straight up just a mess, I feel like the lack of effort, the lack of interest, the lack of love in relationships break you down. Because then you start wondering, well, am I not doing enough? Am I X, Y, and Z? And no, it's not you. They just make you believe this because they're messing with your brain. Trust me, I know. So at the end of the day, you stop recognizing yourself. You stop being who you were. Your friends don't even know you. Listen, the second my ex and I split up, all of the people around me told me, oh my gosh, it kind of feels like you're glowing. Like you got your spark back. Like you just look good. Like it's not whether you're happy or not. Like you just look, like shiny. And I could feel it. I lost a lot of weight. Which now I gained back. But anyways, I lost a lot of weight. I felt happy. I was going out with friends. I was like more active in my life. I wasn't just at home 24/7 because I wasn't depressed. But yeah, this is what toxic relationships will do. They'll start making you not recognize yourself anymore. And that sucks. And girlies, abusive relationships with the person that's not right for you comes with a lot more than just bruises and fights. You'll develop anxiety and you'll start overthinking absolutely everything that happens in that relationship. You'll start second guessing yourself. You start wondering if you did the wrong thing, if you said the wrong thing, if you could have done more. And this over time bleeds into your day-to-day life, not just the relationship. And guess what? At some point, you're going to develop low self-esteem because you're going to start believing that you don't deserve more, because that's what these people make you believe. And yeah, I was one of those. I was like, I mean, do I even deserve more? I talk a lot. I'm a lot. I feel like I'm really extra. And I started to believe that no one was going to want to be with me unless it was this person, because I didn't deserve any better. And it's not that it was a conclusion that I got to. This person made me believe that I was the problem. Therefore, I got into this conclusion. Ooh, and one that really hurt me, and if you heard my previous episode, I speak about social anxiety, isolation. In a lot of abusive relationships, the abuser will try to isolate you from your friends, from your family, from your acquaintances, from your coworkers. This person will isolate you from existence pretty much. And if they don't do it, you'll start to pull away because you feel like, you're embarrassed to admit what's going on. Or let's say someone invites you to a dinner with your partner, then you're not going to want to go because you're like, oh my gosh, this person always, it's always fighting for some reason. I don't want them to fight in like a social setting. So you start to self-isolate, or they isolate you. So isolation, it's a reality in a lot of abusive relationships. And let me be clear, all of these things that we talked about don't just apply to physically abusive relationship. Emotional abuse can be just as harmful as physical abuse. Manipulation, gaslighting, the way the abuser will turn and twist everything to make you believe that you are the problem will damage you too. And when you're in love, it's so easy to miss all of these red flags because you're so focused on the good moment. When these people put you down and they have you on the floor, any minimal attention, any minimal touch, love, anything feels like they're giving you the world, even though it's not. So let's use my relationship as an example. We had a joint bank account where we would put money monthly together, right? It wasn't like all of our money was together, but we would put money for like rent and groceries and this and that and like house stuff. So like we would put money weekly, right? So I had a thing with him where I told him, aside from rent, let's put X amount of money in this thing. I told him to put $35 per week. $35 per week. We live in the Bay Area. This is one of the most expensive places in the country to live in, okay? He would always fight to put those $35 in that freaking bank account. And I would be like, dude, it's just $35. Like there's sometimes that we need to buy, I don't know, napkins, or we need to buy towels or whatever it is. Just put those $35 in the bank account. And he would always say, you are trying to take all of my money, blah, blah. $35, sir. You think I'm trying to take all of your money through $35 at a time? For the love of God. Anyways, but the one time that he would just put the $35 without fighting, I felt like, oh my gosh, he's changing. He's willing to do this for me. He actually really likes me. Is that a big act of kindness and love? No. I was just so used to the bad that anything that wasn't bad felt so good. And this happens in different extents on every relationship that is abusive. And you really have to watch out for yourself to not get used to the sucky things, because then the not so sucky things are going to feel like they're giving you gold when they're literally not. Now let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about why potential is a trap. A lot of us, especially women, are raised to believe, and not just by our parents, but like by society in general, by the movies you watch, the books you read, how they portray love in the screens. We are raised to believe that if we just love somebody enough and we give them enough care and enough nurturing, they're going to change. And guess what? People change for sure, but not unless they want to. And waiting around for somebody to step into their potential is like waiting around for that text of the Tinder guy that ghosted you. Is simply not happening. And I did once watch a TikTok that said that the potential you see on somebody is not truly their potential, but what you would do in their situation. And that changed my perspective on dating 100%. Because I would go out with these guys where, they would have all these like huge problems, and I'll be like, I mean, this is like so clearly so easy to solve, but they couldn't see it. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, like this is not their potential. It's my potential. And falling in this circle just creates codependency. Yeah, believe it or not, it does. Because then you start thinking, you start putting their needs above yours. And then you start thinking, well, if I just help him through this rough patch and if I'm just there for him, then they'll become the person that I know that they can be. No, they won't. And even if they do become a little bit better, then what happens to you? You go, back burner. You start chasing their dreams instead of chasing your own. You start focusing on their growth more than your own, and you start to lose yourself because their goals becomes first and top priority. So you lose yourself. And at the end of the day, this type of behavior and this type of, exchange fully just warps your vision of love. Because then you start thinking that love goes alongside with struggle, with pain, with fights, with X, Y, and Z, when in reality, love should be so easy. Love shouldn't feel like you're struggling 24/7. And I think that's also that gets just so normalized in like movies and just the media of, yeah, you have to fight for the love that you want. No, you shouldn't. Like, sure, you're not just gonna let it go at the first, sign of struggle, but love should feel easy. Love shouldn't feel like you're fighting for it every day, like a battle for something else. No, that is not what love is. So then you get used to these type of things, and then you're like, well, yeah, I mean, this is what I know, this is what I'm used to, but that doesn't mean that that's what's normal and that's what's correct. And I'm just gonna add another little story here. I am now in a healthy relationship for, I feel like, the first time in my life, to be honest. And there's just a lot of things that, my previous relationship left me a little bit fucked up that I'm trying to fix now. But I'm going to give you literally the easiest example. With my ex, basically anything and everything would be a fight. Okay, so it would be to the point where we would buy groceries separate and our fridge was split in half, and one half was for my groceries and his half was for his grocery. And if I ever thought of touching anything from his side of the fridge, that would be the Third World War. Like, it would just explode a fight in this household. And it was to the point where, like, let's say he had a yogurt in his side of the fridge. I would have to text him and ask him for permission of, hey, like, I'm at home and I don't really have anything on the fridge for me for snacks. Is it okay if I please take one of your yogurts? And then he would get back to me with something like, yeah, sure. I mean, I don't like it, but like, go ahead. Just Venmo me for the value of it. That is some disgusting fucking behavior. And yes, I was married to this person. Jesus Christ. I am now with my boyfriend, and I know that those behaviors were absurd. Okay. I would never think of telling somebody, yeah, and especially not a partner, yeah, Venmo me for the value of a yogurt. Like, please. I know that these behaviors are fucked up. I know that that's not correct. But even with my boyfriend now, and we've been together for a while, subconsciously I'll text him like, hey, there's a little bit of pizza in the fridge, I know you got it, but like, is it okay if I have it? And I don't text him with the fear that I would text my ex, because I know my ex would just like explode into a nonsense discussion. I would just text him to make sure he's okay with it, and he'll text me back like, love, whatever's on the fridge is yours too. Like, you do not have to text me for these type of things. Please just go and eat whatever you want. And I've done this a couple times, and my boyfriend gets upset like, oh my gosh, you don't have to text me for this. It's like crazy. You can just eat whatever. I'll buy you more. And that's how love should feel. It should feel easy. It shouldn't feel like it's a struggle. You shouldn't feel scared of the other person's reaction for the most minimal thing. That's not love. Now, how do we recognize when it's time to let go? Because it is hard to leave a relationship. And I think this is something that I struggled with for a long time. The whole, well, I didn't get married to get divorced, and we live together. What's going to happen with rent? How am I going to live by myself? Also, I think in relationships in general, but abusive relationships particularly, the financial situation gets so scary so quick. I know damn well I was terrified that I wasn't going to make it by myself. That I was like, how am I going to eat? How am I going to pay for rent? Mind you, now I look back and I'm like, girlie, you were eating by yourself. Like, you were getting your own groceries. He wasn't really helping you with much. And like, even if I have to move to a smaller apartment, I would have been fine. But the first step to let go, and I know it comes with a lot of fears and a lot of scaries, but it is to admit to yourself that this relationship isn't serving you. This is not your place to be at. It is not okay. You're not good where you're at. And that this relationship is hurting you more than it's serving you. And no, this doesn't mean that you didn't love them enough, that you didn't try enough. It just means that you're putting yourself first. And I probably mentioned this in another episode, but I had a teacher in 3rd grade that used to always tell us, first you, second you, third you, and in the 4th place, other people, if you have the mental bandwidth for it. And if not, it's 4th for you. And to be honest, that has stuck to me since then. I have always tried to put myself before others, and that might sound a little bit selfish, but if you don't, you're going to end up with a lot of mental issues because, listen, the times that I haven't put myself first, that's what's happened for me. But listen, I know for a fact that saying all of this is a lot easier than actually doing it. Mind you, with my ex, it's not like I said, okay, I'm walking away from this relationship because it's not serving me. No, he was arrested for domestic violence. And mind you, he was arrested twice, but the second time I said, enough is enough. If I don't walk away right now, this guy will kill me. So I got a restraining order. I got all of his things out of the house. And that's when I decided that I was finishing everything. And I honestly didn't give it much thought. I was just generally terrified that if we got back together, he was actually going to kill me. So I said, goodbye, grab your shit, let it go. And listen, he we had an incident that time that he got arrested and I didn't ever see him again. But I would have had liked to have some steps for living and some practical, here's what you gotta do in order for it not to get to a point where you're like getting restraining orders, but instead you can just walk away whenever you feel like it. First of all, everyone says this, it's a little repetitive, but you do need it. You need a support system. Talk to your friends, talk to your families, talk to your neighbors, whoever you feel like you could trust about this. You just need to let them know what's going on. And this is in the case that you're in an extremely abusive relationship like mine. I mean, you don't have to be going out there and outing your life problems, but if you're in a place where you genuinely feel like you do not know how to leave, talk to people. Just people knowing it takes a big weight off of your shoulders. Because I know when I was hiding anything and everything that was going on with me, I was so ashamed. I was feeling so pressured to keep up this, idea of the perfect relationship that I had. And I know at least my family, like my extended family, they were so enamored by my ex. Because my ex was your typical white guy with light eyes and a good body, and that was all they knew, right? They didn't really know what was going on behind closed doors. So I felt this whole pressure of keeping up this ideal relationship that everyone had. And when I started to tell people the reality of it, I felt like a literal weight off my shoulders. Like I could let it go now because I don't have to hide anything anymore. People know, so why the fuck am I holding on to it? And we talked about boundaries in another episode, but you have to set boundaries and no with your partner, because they're probably not going to respect it. With yourself. Set a boundary with yourself. Say what you are going to tolerate and what you're not willing to tolerate, and stick to it. And if what you're not willing to tolerate happens one more time, be true to yourself and respect yourself enough to say, this is it. I do not want it anymore. And seek therapy if you need it. Listen, a lot of the times you need professional help to be able to rebuild yourself. And I know this is expensive and it can get, crazy. There's a lot of programs out there. I know in California, there's programs that offer free therapy. There's a long waiting list, but might as well sign up and wait as opposed to not doing anything about it. I am now in therapy because I was diagnosed with chronic PTSD. And therapy has been a life changer, even after my relationship. And we've been split up for 2 years. And just now, maybe 6 months ago, I was able to get therapy and I couldn't sleep. Even after 2 years, I was still getting nightmares. For a year, it was every day. After the year, it was 4 times a week. And it kind of stuck like that for a long time. And it's crazy how sleep can affect your life and your moods and anything and everything. And now I have therapy and I'm able to sleep a little bit better. And it's just been, I swear to God, it's like my entire personality is brand new. That I do not know myself. And these are things that I think are basic, like bottom of the barrel, like what you should do. Now there's, specific things like do not mix your finances, have a little bit of savings of your own. There's a lot of other things that I can go a lot more into detail about. But if you're simply in just kind of like a toxic relationship, not necessarily abusive, then you're probably not going to want to hear all of this. And if you do, please feel free to DM me. I would love to chit chat about this with you. I know that there's a lot more people that go through abusive relationships that we think. And it's crazy now because now I work in law and we sue men for being abusers, or girls if that's the vibe. But we sue people for being abusers, and I sued my ex and I got a lot of money. But yeah, I just deal with that every day now at work, and it's crazy to see the amount of women that are getting abused. And you would never know because these girls are not talking about it to their friends, their family, their people don't know. Now, why is leaving worth it? At this point, you might be wondering, well, but we already have a child together, or we already bought a house together. Why would I leave? Yeah, my relationship is toxic as fuck, but why do I want to leave? Now, listen, I know letting go, it's scary. It feels like you're giving up, like you're failing, like you're a failure, but it's not. Choosing to stop pouring your energy into someone who's not pouring energy back into you is allowing yourself to heal, is allowing yourself to rediscover yourself, who you truly, truly are, not under this person's type of control. Who are you really without them? And to be honest, that is one of the most loving things you can do by yourself, because everyone talks about self-care and skincare, whatever else, but those are not the only forms of self-care there is. And girly, if you are listening to this and it's hitting a nerve, I just want you to know that you are not alone. A lot of people, including myself, have gone through things like this, and we've made it out successfully. So can you. And trust me, letting go is not easy, but staying with the wrong person will only hold you back from being the best version of yourself, and will give you a lot of expenses after you have to pay for a lot of therapy. Trust me. And let me hold your hand when I say this, and I hope you're taking notes. You deserve a love that feels good, a love that it's easy, a love that lifts you up, not something that drags you down. And I know it is hard as fuck to let go and to walk away, but trust me, sometimes you simply have to do it and trust that there's something better waiting for you on the other side. And girlies, if this episode resonated with you, please like it, or maybe share it with a friend that needs a little bit of an extra push to choose themselves. And as always, my DMs are open, whether you want to talk about your story or you need a little bit of encouragement. But how are you going to DM me? Well, you can find the podcast on every platform as @It'sALawPodcast, and you can find me as @IngeloreDubs. And that's it for today, besties. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for giving me your time. And remember, letting go isn't losing. It's winning yourself back. Besitos.